Today, we're diving into the story of a true visionary, a man who set the stage for a massive, global spiritual movement. We're talking about someone whose single instruction to a young student would one day echo in cities all over the world, from London to Los Angeles.
It's a great question, isn't it? You've definitely heard of the Hare Krishna movement. We see the results, the chanting, the books, the temples, but we don't always look back at the one key person who got the whole ball rolling. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do.
All right, let's get right into it. The man we're talking about is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati. And, our timing here is pretty amazing because February 6th is actually celebrated by his followers as his appearance day.
Now, for most of us, this is the connection we know. He was the spiritual master, the guru, of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is, of course, the man who would go on to found ISCON and make the Hare Krishna mantra famous around the globe. So he is, quite literally, the root of this massive branching tree.
But to really get a sense of the man behind the mission, we got to go back to the beginning. His life was this fascinating mix of two things that seem like total opposites, a genius-level intellect, and at the same time, this incredibly deep humility.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's wild. He was born in 1874. By the time he was just 7 years old, he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all 700 verses. By 25, he was such a master of astronomy that he earned the title Siddhanta Saraswati. But here's the kicker, the part that really tells you everything. In 1905, this brilliant scholar goes and seeks initiation from a saint who, by all accounts, was illiterate. Wow. That just says it all, doesn't it? True spiritual wisdom isn't just about what you know from books, but who you are deep down.
And get this part sounds like it's straight out of an epic movie. His own father, who was a great spiritual teacher in his own right, had this dream of the message of Krishna consciousness spreading all over the planet. He specifically prayed for a son who could help make that happen. So from the very beginning, his birth was seen as the answer to that prayer. No pressure, right?
So after his initiation, that powerful but illiterate spiritual master gave him this one simple instruction. It's so direct. Preach the absolute truth and keep aside all other work. That's it. And that single command became the engine that drove the rest of his life.
So with those as his marching orders, he launched one of the most dynamic spiritual missions of the early 20th century. But, and this is key, he did it in a way that was completely new.
So what's with the number 64? Well, that's how many Gaudiya Math centers, think of them as monasteries and preaching outposts, he established all across India. This is so important. He wasn't some hermit meditating in a cave, no way. He was an organizer, a builder, creating this incredible nationwide spiritual network.
And this is where you really see his modern approach. At a time when a lot of traditionalists were rejecting anything modern, he just embraced it as a tool. He understood this crucial idea. The message is eternal, but the methods you use to deliver it can change with the times. So if a suit and tie or a ride in a car helped spread the message, he was all for it. He adapted the packaging without ever changing the product inside.
He even had a whole philosophy for this. He called the printing press the Brihat Mridanga, which means the great drum. Think about it. A traditional temple drum, the mridanga, can be heard for a few blocks. But the great drum of the press, he argued, that could be heard all over the world. What a revolutionary way to think about mass communication for a spiritual purpose.
Now, all this work he was doing in India was absolutely monumental, but it was one single conversation, one fateful meeting that would plant the seeds for a truly global movement.
Okay, let's set the scene. The year is 1922. A young college student named Abhay Karandea shows up in Calcutta to meet this great spiritual teacher, and this is the very first time they ever meet. And almost immediately, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati looks at this young man and gives him this staggering instruction. He doesn't just say preach, he says you should preach to the Western world, and you need to do it in the English language. Can you just imagine the weight of that command in your very first meeting?
And of course, you probably guessed by now, that young student was none other than the man the world would come to know as Srila Prabhupada, the very same person who decades later would fulfill that exact instruction and found the Hare Krishna movement in the West.
But the story wasn't a straight line from A to B. Oh no, the vision was nearly lost, which makes its eventual fulfillment even more remarkable.
You see, after Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati passed away in 1937,
The very organization he built, all those 64 centers, it fell into disarray. Because of internal conflicts, it pretty much disintegrated. It really looked like the grand mission might have ended right there.
But the mission wasn't lost. That seed that was planted back in 1922 was still there. For over 40 years, his disciple, Prabhupada, held that order in his heart. Then, finally, in 1965, as an elderly man with almost no money, he sails to America, and there he founds ISKCON, creating a brand new vehicle to carry his spiritual master's vision forward across the globe.
It's just an incredible story of faithfulness to a single instruction, carried out against all odds, decades after it was first given. The vision was, indeed, fulfilled.
So when you boiled it all down, what's his ultimate legacy? Well, within India, he's credited with completely revitalizing his spiritual tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and protecting it from being compromised. He re-established it as a major force. And for the rest of the world, as we've seen, his true impact was planting that single seed that would grow into a worldwide movement.
And that just leaves us with this one final thought. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the power of a single, focused instruction, passed from one dedicated person to another. How a conversation in Calcutta way back in 1922 could ripple outwards across time and continents to change the spiritual lives of millions of people. Now that is the power of a legacy.